I'm Jay Pitts, a real estate broker, agent, leader, and investor. For the last decade, I've navigated the craziest of real estate markets this country has ever seen, selling over 2,000 homes, moving in and out of markets, always ahead of the curve. And now I'm bringing that perspective to you. This is your resource, and Real Talk About Real Estate starts right now. And we're back, folks. Welcome to another episode of Resource Real Talk About Louisville Real Estate. I'm your host, Jay Pitts, broker-owner at RE/MAX Premier Properties. It's been a bit of a hiatus. I feel like I say that a little too often. The truth is, 2021 was a busy year. It was a year full of challenge. It was a year full of success. It was a year full of unprecedented changes in the marketplace. And I'm so excited to be back. Going to do my level best to bring you consistent content kicking off the year here in 2022. I hope you've been well. Hope you are healthy. Hope your family is safe and provided for, and that 2021 had as much good in it for you as it did for me and mine. So without further ado, let's pay some bills. See if I remember how to do this. We're a podcast. We want people to listen to it. So we got to tell you where to find us, where to go watch, and all those type of things. So anyway, don't forget about us on the socials. Facebook.com/The Resource Podcast. That's our page. That's where you're going to find links, snippets, information about the podcast. Go find us there. You can find full-length episodes, both video and audio, on YouTube, youtube.com/JPittsRealtor. Click the tab for the Resource Podcast once you're there. You can find us on the other socials. You can hear a little bit more about what I had for breakfast or my thoughts about what's going on in the world a little bit over at Twitter on Twitter at JPittsRealtor. You can find me, same handle on Instagram at JPittsRealtor, where you can see all about my real estate team, real estate business, mortgage company, all the things that I'm doing with lots of, content that we produce there, whether it's reels and snippets of the podcast, shots of amazing listings, agent, kind of superlatives and achievements that we like to share on a regular basis. You can also find us on TikTok. That's a goal of mine for this year, is to build out TikTok a little bit more. J_Pitts on TikTok. Going to try and, keep with the times, stay a little trendy, and deliver you some content that you might want to consume. You can find us and our sister episode on everywhere we podcast as well, JTP University. Those are short, 5-minute, digestible, actionable, tactical, if you will, episodes and topics that, you don't have to devote a half an hour to here with the Resource Podcast that we do for you, usually weekly on Wednesdays, come to you right around lunchtime. Those popular podcast platforms, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can probably find us anywhere you podcast, because that's just kind of how the technology of hosting works. When you get one, you get all that come with it. But we do appreciate your patronage on Apple Podcasts, probably specifically. That's where we have the most reviews. It's where we get the most listens. If you can throw us a 5-star review, if you can give us, a subscription or a follow, if you will, I think that's what they call it now. Do the same on Spotify. That's the other big podcast platform where you're going to find most of your people. Listen, if Joe Rogan is there, then it's good enough for us. So we're going to be there, early and often in 2022 for you. All right. So without further ado, with the bills paid, we're going to do what is a January or first episode of January tradition now here on Resource. And we're going to deliver to you a recap on my 5 predictions that I laid out this very same week of 2021. Predictions for the year to come are coming soon. That's what we're going to come to you with next week. Predictions for what may happen. I might even tease a few of them today. I was listening back to the episode last year from where I made the predictions that I'm going to reference and analyze for you today. And it was the day after our team retreat. It just so happens that today is the day after our team retreat for JT Pitts and Associates. Got to spend a lot of good time with some amazing agents yesterday, agents that have made me supremely proud over the last 12 months, shown me grit and determination and adaptability and just an overall willingness to listen and execute. Listening and execution. Gosh, if everything were just that simple, listening and execution. I sure wish parenting was. It kind of makes me think of conversations with my 9-year-old. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the 5 predictions because we don't have all day and I like to be respectful of your time. Number 1, made a prediction on the Louisville real estate market. Going to have a similar prediction for you next week on what's to come in 2022. But my prediction was, in essence, a substantial increase in volume behind steep price appreciation, a higher average sales price, and actually fewer units than closed in 2020. Turns out I was right about those 3 things. Let's just think about how right I might have been, though. Because, the devil's in the details. So I told you that we closed 18,790 units in core markets. That would be Jefferson and all counties that touch Jefferson. We're not talking Elizabethtown. That's another MSA, if you ask me. We're not going to Frankfort. We're not going to Meade County. We're not leapfrogging counties. We're only talking contiguous counties: Jefferson, Bullitt, Spencer, Shelby, and Oldham. That is our core Louisville MSA. 18,790 closed units in 2020 for $4.7 billion in sales, or an average sales price of $251,000. My prediction was that there would be a 4 to 5%, I think it was right at 4% decrease in units closed for 18,180 units, but the volume would increase 300,000 or 300 million. Yeah, 300 million from 4.7 billion to 5 billion, round number. That equates to a $24,000 increase in average sales price to $275,000. Like I said, I was right in the direction of all of those predictions. How correct was I? Let's find out. In 2021, we actually closed in those same core markets 17,228 units, or approximately 800 units less than my prediction. Also, about another 700 units less than 2020. Okay? Substantial decrease in units closed. Let's find out about volume. With that many fewer units, is it possible that we increased in volume? The answer is yes. Did we increase all the way to 5 billion? Remember, 2020's number was 4.7. We did not, but we got halfway to that level of increase that I predicted. 4.85 billion in sales in core markets surrounding Louisville. Not quite the 5 that I predicted. Okay, and what does that land in terms of average sales price? Was it the $275 that I predicted? Was it closer to the $251? Well, if you're doing simple math in your head, you'll know that actually the percentage increase was greater than I predicted. Not $275, but $281,000 per sale, per unit sold, $281. So let's talk about that for a moment. We all know the year that we experienced, right? Are we in our bubble, or do we see the market as a whole? Do we substantiate our feelings, okay, that each and every one of us as a practitioner has with data? Or do we get in our narrow lane with blinders on and no peripheral vision to see what's going on with other professionals around us or the market as a whole. I think we tend, as agents, to think the market that we experience is the only market that exists, and it's just not true. But I would guess that each and every one of you, okay, that is a professional that pays attention to the marketplace would say that you felt prices increased more than expected. You may not have guessed that we were to sell fewer units, substantially fewer units than we did in 2020. And those two things, just simply put, when put together and evaluated rationally, would translate to a substantial increase in average sales price. Now, there's going to be ripple effects. There's going to be snapbacks in some micro markets throughout. The luxury market is probably going to have a substantial slowdown in terms of days on market for the next 6 to 12 months. I think that's a very real situation. We're going to talk about rates here in a minute, but if the Fed, follows through with their commitment to taper, bond buying and, push forward with quantitative easing by raising interest rates and devaluing the nation's debt, you're absolutely going to see some slowdowns and some impact. You probably won't see the price appreciation next year that you saw this year. I mean, quite simply put, an increase between 251,000 to 280,000. That's an increase of 30,000 over 251,000. That's a 12% increase in prices market-wide. Pretty substantial. All right, let's go on to number 2. RE/MAX Premier Properties. I'm going to puff my chest out a little bit on this one, Patrick. I stood before you a year ago and predicted that following a year of 942 sales for roughly $217 million, got some different numbers depending on who you talk to here at the office. Heather and I just were going through the numbers before I went live with you here today. But let's just say roughly 216, between 216 and 220, depending on how you count the numbers. I stood before you and predicted an increase from those 942 sales to north of 1,000 and a volume of 275,000 or 275 million, I should say, or an average price that matched the market. Remember, we're a middle of market focused company. We serve all price points. So it stands to reason that our average sales price that I predict would mirror the market's average sales price that I was predicting. So 275 million on 1,000 units. I love simplicity. I love round numbers. My little brain can handle them pretty well. 1,000 units for $275 million or a $275,000 average sales price for RE/MAX Premier Properties agents. Now, where did we land? I'm proud to report that RE/MAX Premier Properties agents absolutely destroyed this prediction in a good way. So I wasn't wrong. I said north of 1,000 units. You'd think I'd be a little more accurate when predicting and come up with something closer to actuality. I only missed it by like 60% or something like that. We came in at a number of closed sales for the year of 1,628 units. I'm a little bit astounded as I quote you that number. 1,628 units. But, as I told you, that's just part of the prediction. The prediction was 1,000 units for $275,000 average. Our average sales price on 942 units for the year prior, let's do that quick math, $216.5 million. Takes a little time to punch in those zeros. Divided by 942 sales. Average sales price in 2020 was $229,000. So we were behind. My average sales price that I predicted was aggressive. It was ambitious. An increase from 229 to 275 was big. We didn't quite get there. We did not quite get there. But after closing $405 million in sales on that 1,628 units, we were able to achieve a sales price of $248,771, or an increase of about $27,000. 10% increase in average sales price, about a 60% better than projection on units, lagged our average sales price prediction by about 10%, but in retrospect, I was bit off a little more than I could chew there. But once again, just completely and utterly in awe of the performance put forth by our agents in the last 12 months. 1,000 for 275 would have been great. 1,628 sales for $405 million is unthinkable. Unthinkable. So my challenge to you now is, how do you follow up any amazing performance? We'll talk about that more in weeks to come. Let's move on to number 3. Pretty simply put, interest rates. I think we all expected that the lows of 20 would not remain. I'm going to fall into Dr. Seuss for you here in a second, but could not and would not remain. My prediction, however, said that I thought they would hang on for another year. Rates would actually drop as the federal government teased many different stimulus packages. As I told you in last year's episode, this is not a political show. However, politics and economic news do play a role in the health and performance of the real estate world. So I have to pay attention to them. I thought, with the economy showing signs of weakness, further stimulus would be, in order. It was stuff that was coming out of the federal government at the time, still is, to be frank, but they haven't been able to execute. The economy has healed faster than expected in some ways. It has shown ancillary problems that we hoped might be transitory at the time, albeit not. Inflation is probably here to stay in somewhat. And now, toward the end of 2021, the Fed starts talking about tapering, raising interest rates to devalue the debt and take care of the country's inflation problem. That's caused rates to go from 2.67 at the time I made the prediction of 2.5 for the coming year to 2.86 in November, and then further information with a change in course from a 3-rate hike to a 4-rate hike expectations. Rates have jumped from 2.86 in November to 3.22% on average. Now, this is from FreddieMac.com historical 30-year fixed rate mortgage index. It's what the industry relies upon as a consensus of where rates are. May you find 3%, 3 1/8, maybe 3 1/4, 3 3/8, probably. But within an eighth here and there, Freddie Mac has been very, very accurate over time. That's why I use it. It's why the index I refer to is. So I'd say I blew this one. And I said last year when I made these predictions, I stand before you, take my consequences, the mocking and the scorn that exists from getting it wrong. But to be frank, I'll just tell you, I don't think anybody else could have done any better. So, you might get some pushback if you try to give me some grief over this one. Moving on to number 4, a little more complex. Some financial predictions. 2 and 1. It's a 2-for-1 deal. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, or the bellwether of the health of the United States economy. It sat at 30,887 at the time of my predictions this time last year. 30,887. After a roller coaster 2020, dipping from 28.7 to 18.5 at the bottom in March of 20, it had reclaimed almost all of its value. And I predicted that we would revisit in January of 22 at a price north of 33,000, or another 10% increase, which, if you go back and listen to the episode, I could even tell you what episode number it is, if that's easier to help you find it. But if you go back and listen to the episode, it's season 4, episode 1 from January 6th of 2021. If you go back and listen to it, I expressed the feeling that another year of a 10% increase in the Dow was nearly unthinkable. But I went on to say that the people that run our economy, and this is not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing, I recognize that Democrats hold the White House and both houses of Congress, but this is not a political party thing, because I think it's equal responsibility is borne on both sides of the aisle. The people who run our economy have figured out, the people who run our country at the federal level have figured out how to manipulate the stock market to produce the result that they want. There are certain things that they cannot manipulate, but by and large, with the use of government, money printing, and stimulus, most of which was made popular after the financial crash of 2008, or the foreclosure bust. Through those means, the economy and the stock market has been propped up with a lot of printed money. And I thought that the Dow would increase again. The 10% that I thought was nearly unthinkable, but still went ahead and predicted, turns out that wasn't enough. By November, the Dow had hit 34,000. It had, retracted back down to 33, back up to 34, hit a few slumps in the fourth quarter, but by and large performed ahead of expectations, and now sits at 36,305 in January of 22. That's a 20% increase over where it was this time a year ago. And I really don't know what to say about it other than it's above my pay grade. I don't have a prediction for the Dow. I don't know that I'll even advance one in next week's episode. Please tune in for that if you would like to hear my thoughts. But I really don't know. I don't know. The thing that has become most clear to me this year is that I just don't know. All right, moving on. Bitcoin. It's always kind of fun. We got some Bitcoiners, some hodlers in the office here. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's HODL, stands for hold on for dear life. That's what they say when they buy Bitcoin, because it is not for the faint of heart. I can proudly say that I am the owner of some Bitcoin now. That happened in 2021, a very small amount, but I'm continually seeing the need for such a thing. Happy to talk to you about it. Doesn't have a place here in this podcast because we're real estate folks. But I will say the value of Bitcoin is very similar to the value of real estate. It has a lot of the same fundamental properties and why I love investing in real estate, which is a topic of conversation for this podcast. I like Bitcoin for a lot of the same reasons, scarcity being the supreme reason. Scarcity. As other money sources become less and less scarce, more and more plentiful, more and more devalued, the need for a scarce asset becomes greater. So anyway, where did I go with this prediction? At the time of this episode, this prediction episode last year, I told you that Bitcoin in same time 2019 was at 7,700, had risen and ascended to 34,800. 34,800. I predicted an increase in the price of Bitcoin to north of 40,000 for this review episode 1 year later. Simultaneously, I predicted a minimum of a 20% correction or decrease in value at some point during the year of 2021. That would represent a decrease from 34,800 to 28,000 roughly. When we did an update in November, Bitcoin sat at 43,300. It had also corrected already to a 12-month low of 28,893 and currently sits at 43,700. So once again, the prediction was from 34,800 downward to 28, a 20% decrease, and then an increase to north of 40,000 before year's end or before our year review. And in actuality, Bitcoin went from 34,800 down to 28,893 and rose to 43,700. Didn't quite hit the nail on the head on the 20% correction. It was just shy of it. But the increase to 40K, it exceeded my prediction by $3,700. Feeling pretty smart behind that one. I will say it's complex, but maybe not as many would have you believe. Bitcoin is very simply a digital currency that has value because people think it has value. And it's hard money. It cannot be devalued by making more of it. There will only ever be a certain amount. I kind of encourage you to look into it, to be honest. And don't get wrapped up in the hype of other cryptocurrency. That is my advice, but more than happy to talk to you. All right, those are my serious predictions for the year. My fifth and final, actually, I guess Dow could have been 4 and Bitcoin could have been 5. I said it's a 5 prediction episode, but I had to throw one more in there to make it fun. I predicted that a Tesla Cybertruck would be sitting in my garage at the recording of this next episode. Not only did that not happen, not a single Tesla Cybertruck has rolled off the production line yet. Not only that, Tesla has removed the projected delivery date from their website, and they've pre-sold north of 3 million of these things. Now, not all bad for Tesla. At the time of this episode, Tesla sat at $786 a share, an all-time high, and a PE ratio of 1,475. Any of you that know anything about the stock market know that is pure insanity. 1,475. PE ratio stands for price to earnings. Very simply put, the price of a share divided by the earnings per share. Price to earnings. Not the earnings per share, excuse me. Price per share divided by earnings is the PE ratio. The higher, the worse. Price of the stock is high and earnings are low. Big denominator or big numerator, small denominator, big PE ratio equals bad things. Why would a company have a high PE ratio? They would have a high PE ratio because the investment is quite speculative. Tech companies tend to have higher PE ratios. Pre-revenue companies, incredible, infinite PE ratios. But to have a company the size of Tesla with $1 trillion market cap trading at a 1475 PE ratio is unthinkable. It is absolutely unthinkable. Now, after that, $786 a share, the price dropped and bottomed near 500. There were lots of regulatory issues. You know, their infamous CEO smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah, I think that was the year before, actually. But had some run-ins, bought some Bitcoin, sold some Bitcoin, pumped meme stocks on his Twitter account. Elon Musk is a different guy. But I think he's probably had the last laugh, to be quite honest. Because where we sit right now, remember, the low actually was $539 a share, down from $786 at the time we recorded that prediction podcast. Right now, Tesla sits at $1,096 a share. More than double their low, more than 25% increase from the time that we recorded this show a year ago. The PE ratio, probably most impressively, has dropped from 1475 to 358. 75% drop in the PE ratio. Now, 358 is still high. But Tesla's a world-changing company. I think we all have seen and bought into the hype of EVs, electric vehicles, in the last 12 months. Pretty soon, they will be the standard, not the exception. And whether there's a Cybertruck in my garage or not, I can still appreciate the success of a good company. All right, in retrospect, one more time. Hit all three projections on the Louisville market. Some better than others. 281,000 as opposed to the 275 average sales price was remarkably close. 1,628 units for $405 million in sales at RE/MAX Premier Properties. Couldn't be more proud of my people. 3.22% was probably my biggest blown prediction of the year versus 2.5. Thought rates were going to go the other way slightly. Got humbled on that one. The Dow at 36.3, which is certainly north of the $33,000 barrier that I predicted. Bitcoin was probably my most impressive prediction of the year. After a 20% decrease, it climbed to north of 40,000 as predicted to 43.7. There is no Tesla in my driveway, but there will be someday. I don't know what to say other than when somebody's doing special things, I just want to be a part of it. We will be back real soon for another episode of predictions for the 2022 year. Got some interesting stuff that you may not be expecting. I really do appreciate such a great year. Our production of episodes was a little sparse. A lot of you know that had some personal things going on in my life this year, but I do appreciate your listenership for the last 4 years. Giving us just a little bit of your week to talk real estate here in the Louisville market, to understand what it takes real estate agents to be successful, what it takes to get them to the next level. That's what we're about. Transparency has always been something that I'm very, very interested in, and I want to deliver you nothing but the best advice, the best guidance, the best mentorship. However you consume the content that we produce, this is the end that we are pursuing. Anyway, once again, I am your host, Jay Pitts, broker owner, RE/MAX Premier Properties. This has been Resource, Real Talk about Louisville Real Estate. We'll see you soon.